Super. We are live once again in the Hackathon live streaming. Happy Friday, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Sorry we're late.
So, sorry we're late. You're very polite there, Mark. So, I'm Shane McAllister. I'm sure you've seen my head on these streams before too. And you will have seen Mark as well and Nic. Mark, Nic, hello. Do you want to make your introductions?
Thank you.
I never know what to say about myself. I'm a senior developer advocate at MongoDB. I'm enthusiastic about lots of things. I'm based in Edinburgh, where it's actually sunny outside right now, which is very unusual.
I'll keep mine short. I'm on the developer relations team as well. I popped up on previous hackathon streams, so I'm over here in sunny California.
And I am in probably not quite so sunny as California, but it's sunny at the moment in Limerick, the west coast of Ireland. So you have Scotland, Ireland, and the US represented on this stream. And we're going to bring in some guests as well, too. So it is a global one. I am going to, not wanting to be sick of repeating myself, I do need to ensure that, for certain people, this is probably maybe they're only encountering this stream for the first time. I promise not to take up too long, because this session, this is our Fun Hack Friday session. This is Nic Raboy's stream. This is where we're going to see Nic build some cool stuff. And
He's a professional.
Yeah.
I try. I fake it.
And we're going to hack along with Nic, and we're going to interrupt him, and we're going to annoy him, and we're going to see what he's built. But before we do that, I'm going to do a bit of housekeeping, first of all, just to inform those of you who may only be coming onto this for the first time. This is the MongoDB World Hackathon live stream. We are running this hackathon right up until May the 20th, and it's the lead up, essentially, to our MongoDB World, which is on in person this year, because it hasn't been for 2 years, in New York, but on June 7th to 9th. So the hackathon for us is an opportunity to engage with our community and do something fun and to collaborate and to participate and build it up together as we build towards MongoDB World. Quickly, how to register for those of you that might not know yet. We've made it super simple. So if you go to mongodb.com/world, you will end up on the site, the MongoDB World site, and up there, top in the banner, we have a hackathon link. I've circled it here. It is not like that in real life. You will have to read and find it yourself. But in essence, you click on that, you will go to the hackathon webpage where you have all of the details. If you scroll down, you'll find the theme and everything else that we're going to be talking about shortly. And then there's the big in-your-face green register for hackathon button, which you can't miss. And if you click that, two things are going to happen. If you're already a member of the MongoDB community, you are going to go straight into our community forums, and you're going to be added to the hackathon group. And that's it. It's simply one-click join. If you are not already a member of our community, you're going to have to register for our community to be part of this hackathon. So you'll just go through a small registration form, and then you'll be into the hackathon group. It's as simple as that. It's free to join, free to participate. We started the hackathon on April 11th, and we are continuing it right up until May 20th. And this really for us is this session here today is about hacking together as well too. So Nic in a short while is going to show us what he's building. It's our minimal viable product. I think it's quite a good name for it at the moment, Nic, right? So
pretty much.
Very much so. Yeah. But we're building a news browser, and we're going to show and share how we built that and what the functions and features and additions that we're going to make to it over the course of the next few weeks as well too. You can learn a bit more about the hackathon itself on a podcast that we did about 2-3 weeks ago. Episode 105 is available wherever you happen to get your podcasts. And I know I'll be shot if I don't say this. So our podcast MC, Mike Lynn, will want you all to rate and star and review the podcast as well too. As we are at the moment, we're live streaming most of the time for this hackathon. We are in a virtual world. It's the kind of virtual world we've all been occupying for the last couple of years. And we're running this hackathon virtually as well too. But in order to gain as much touch points with our community and with our participants, we are live streaming most of the time. So every Tuesday, Thursday, and Fridays, we're live streaming. We're doing it at 2 time zones as well, too. So we do an early time zone to suit APAC region and early Europe. And then we do a later time zone for essentially the US and later on in Europe as well, too. So we have in our forums the events section there that I'll show you shortly. And you can go in there and see any of our forthcoming live streams as well, too. We're live streaming on YouTube and Twitch at the same time, so it's easy to catch. The key thing for Hackathon is why should you participate? We got swag. Hey, that should be enough.
I really like that T-shirt.
Yes, yeah. This is super kind of unique T-shirts for the Hackathon this year. We're delighted that we managed to get it and get the budgets, etc., to put it together. We have built a Hackathon swag store that we will be giving our participants access to. So there's T-shirts and other goodies that they can redeem there. And we are providing swag for essentially kind of a number of different kind of touch points, I suppose, throughout the Hackathon. So it's not just for winners or people who get into the finals or, you know, chosen in the shortlist. This is essentially for anybody who participates, anybody who comes on board this live stream, as we'll see shortly. Anybody who puts up a project. We've just announced that we've got a projects category in our forums. If you put the details of your project up there, what you're building, and your repo, and particularly your link to your repo, then everybody who does that exercise will be in line to get some of these cool T-shirts as well too. I think that we've got over 330 people at the last count registered for the Hackathon, which is superb. We're really, really delighted with that. But we need more activity going on in our forums. It's too easy to kind of just hack away in the background and not share the problems and things that you're encountering or share your ideas. And if we did this in the real world, that's what would be happening. You'd be all in a conference room, we'd be grabbing you all together. So we're trying to do that virtually and see if we can matchmake in that way. Another reason to participate, we've got some discount codes. First off is a really, really superb discount code for MongoDB World itself. If you can, it's on in New York, June 7th to June 9th. I know that doesn't suit everybody and travel, etc., etc. But if you happen to be in the US or Canada or somewhere that's easy to get there, a 50% discount code is by far the largest discount code you will find anywhere for MongoDB World. So just use MDB Hack 50 on registering. It is limited. It's the first 25 people to use that code will get access to that 50% discount. We also have an Atlas discount code as well. What you're going to see, what Nic is building, what our participants are building is using MongoDB Atlas. MongoDB Atlas has a brilliant free tier, the M0 tier, that will allow you to get up and started and running. But if you're trying to do something bigger with a bit more compute, a bit more bandwidth, a bit more storage, you're going to want to use a bigger tier. And for that, we have $100 of Atlas credits to help you there. So if you use the code WorldHack22, you will get $100 of Atlas credits, which will get you very far. And of course, with every hackathon, we've got prizes. As I mentioned, there's swag and there's other prizes along the way. And prizes are there for pretty much, as much participation as possible. We will be judging essentially on criteria of your projects. Is it creative? Is it well designed? Is it well made? Does it run? We're going to get access to your repos to see that as well too. The submission process is super simple. A description of your project, your team members who are involved with you, a short 3-minute long video of that project in action, and a link to your repo. So the judging team essentially can go in and assess it. So I'm sure I've eaten up enough time already. Just a recap of the timeline. We started on April 11th. So this is the end of week 3. We have 3 more weeks left of this hackathon, but you can join at any time. There's no gating. There's no weekly challenges. You can join at any time. So if you come with an idea, you can register, jump on the hackathon, and away you go. Deadline is May 20th. So all the submissions need to be in by then, having been built on MongoDB, and also using the GDELT data set that we're going to go into now as well too, to get a submission in there. So without further ado, we're going to jump across. I'm going to stop sharing. We have said the theme is data is news. And I put a call out in our forums during the week, in the previous week, for some brave people to help participate and share what they're building as well too. So we have 2 such people on board, and I'm going to invite them into the stream now. So we've got both John and Avik here to share what they're building as well too. So welcome to the stream, John, Avik. It's good to have you, and thank you very much for volunteering to come on and demo what you're doing.
You're both on
Hello,
mute.
Shane.
Just heads up.
Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yeah, you
Yes,
are.
we can hear you loud and clear. Welcome.
Yeah. Hello, Shane. Hello, Nick, and hello, Mark. Me and John are up to one project that is based on good news. Better we can say as positive news, because we are going to show you that. It's in a very basic stage.
Should we share John's screen?
Yeah, share my
There you
screen.
go.
Yeah.
Okay. Work away. The stage is yours. Please go through what you've been building, and this is superb to see. You're the first to come on the live stream, so I hope what you will manage to do is convince and twist other people to come on as well too. Thank you so much, Avik and John.
And also thanks a lot to whole MongoDB team for giving us the opportunity for sharing.
So the screen is yours. You can click through there, and if you want to talk through your demo.
Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
We can see John's screen. Do you want John's screen or Avik's screen?
Oh, yes, sorry.
So I'll switch over. If Avik, if you're doing the demo, there you go. That's your screen now.
Okay. So yeah, it's in a very basic stage. So right now, it's just finding all the positive news, and it's showing it as a card manner. And then if you scroll down, then it will fetch some more news, more positive news. And you can infinitely scroll through that and get a flood of positive news.
I'm very excited to see that article about the best Scottish sunset there, because that's my local newspaper.
How kind of fortuitous did that happen in this demo?
I'm going to have to look that up and find out if any of those places are actually near my house now.
This looks great. Do you want to talk us through, Avik or John, how you managed to put this together and kind of some insights into, how you managed to work with the GDELT data set, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'll go through what I found. So for the GDELT data, what I found is we basically have. Let me go through the code. So we have Goldstein scale, and what I found that Goldstein scale and average tone, these two are mainly compromising for the positivity of the news, the whole how positive the news is. We go through the that GDELT dataset codes and cameo codes. So what we found that it's mainly the Goldstein scale and average tone. We are still digging through the database to find out more features, whether we are to make it more stable. And also there is some repetition in news. So we also, what we did, we fetched the news and then filter out the unique news from the total set, and we are showing it up here. And regarding the Goldstein scale and average tone, that is, if it's greater than 1, so that means it's have positivity in that news. If it's less than 1 or less than 0 actually, then it's considered to be a negative news or a news with negative impact. So basically we are doing that as of now. For our upcoming part, that is we are also going to incorporate some other features like some graph and all. So regarding that, I will hand over this to John, so he can share what he have made.
Thank you so much, Avik. As Avik has mentioned, we've done some work on the good news retrieval parts of our project, but we are hoping to do some data visualization going forward which is going to be basically something like this with a view of the entire globe, and then we'll have like points with good news all around the world. The points will be of varying sizes, so the sizes represents like the average tone, and also like they'll also be color coded, so that the color coding will represent the Goldstein scale. We haven't particularly decided the other features we're going to embed in this, but we just want like a geospatial representation of that data, so that like users can just come up to the site and visually see some areas that have more good news than others, and we're still deciding on other features to like represent this good news information in a more visual manner. So these the features we're planning on implementing going forward, with some other features which we are yet to decide on properly. So
Excellent.
that's what
This
we
is
have for now.
great. So, wow, fair play. I mean, it's great to see all of this coming together so shortly. I know that the two of you also were matchmaked on the projects looking for hackers, the hackers looking for projects section in the site. So, I appreciate the fact that you both were very proactive in that. I saw the conversations that were happening at that time, and to see this a collaboration coming together is exactly what we put together this hackathon for. So this has been great. So you have a few more weeks to do. I can't wait to see what extra you add. I think if we can twist your arm again, we get you back on to do a demo before the hackathon is over to see how far you've gone. But super impressed with what you've built today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Before they leave, though, I want to
sure.
give them an opportunity to share their LinkedIn or professional portfolio site for people to follow up maybe after the stream. It's a good option for them.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, sure.
Drop it in.
We'll do that. Definitely. So mine is in the YouTube chat. So I'm John Fiewo on LinkedIn. Could reach out. I'm a full stack web developer. So
Got it, and we'll share it on the chat as well after you put it in there.
fantastic.
And-
Thanks, guys.
Avik, you got anything to share?
Yeah, sure. And mine is I am sharing my LinkedIn profile over here in this chat, and I am a full stack developer. I am having around 6.5 years of experience, both in mainly in MERN stack, MongoDB, Node, and React, and AWS also. So basically working on those technologies.
Awesome. I just put them in the YouTube chat for people to say as well. So awesome.
Thank you.
That's great. Well, thank you both so much for stepping up to the plate and volunteering to come on board. This has been great. Really, really good to see what you've built. Super impressed. So thank you. We'll put it up to Nic Raboy now to see how his project is coming along. Right, Nick?
Yeah, sure. I don't know if it's as far along as John and Avik's project, but I'm getting there slowly. Hold on one second. Just rearranging my screens a bit here. I forgot to share, actually, so let me share that as well. Hopefully things go smooth on that aspect. My screen's visible, right?
It is now, yep.
You think I should zoom in at all, or are we good?
A little bit would be great.
Yeah, I think so.
Little zoom. All right, just interrupt me anytime think something looks small. So before I go through what I had planned on going over today, I do want to give an update on where we stand over here, at least from the front end perspective of the project. So this actually is a little similar to what our guests had in their hackathon, but I think they did it better. Theirs is probably more complete than mine. But as far as this goes, so inside actually let me go to the data set first, and I'll explain where everything relates to in that front end. So we actually have GDELT2 is our cluster name, and we have recent events. So inside these documents, and if they're small, let me know. We have information such as the location of the event. So this is a point location.
We could make it a bit bigger, Nick. All right, I think. I know I'm on a big enough
for sure.
screen, but yeah, that's perfect.
How's that? Too
Super.
huge now?
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
good.
That's about right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, no worries. So we have action in our documents. We have inside of that we have a location with some latitude and longitude coordinates, which I'll explain how we're using in just a moment. Other features that we have that are work in progress that are very important would be the tone or the event code, and then as well as the source URL. So the source URL being the website of the actual news article. And there's info here. I'll get there in just a second. But since we have the latitude and longitude information, what I was able to do here was I was able to create a heat map of all of the events around the world based on that location. So I shared this actually in the community forums, the code that I used, in case you want to look it up after, and I'll certainly bring it up probably in the next week's stream. That's not necessarily the subject for this stream.
It's not ready yet.
But yeah, it's sort of ready. It's just I think we're jumping too far ahead if I dive into that today.
Okay.
I want to baby steps. But it does show a heat map based on an aggregation pipeline of the latitude and longitude data. We have recent events, so this would be each of the events, each of the documents. So what we're actually going to be working on today, or what I'm going to be going over is, so for each of these events that have popped up, we could have used a different table within GDELT, right, Mark? That data does exist somewhere. But if I go back into the documents that we chose to use, by default, there is no information other than the source URL for the news article. So what we actually did, instead of using one of these alternate tables from GDELT, is we used a scraper to scrape that information based on the URL, and we populated it inside of an info field, and that's kind of what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to show you how you can actually do this querying, do this loading, do this updating of your documents in case you need to do some massaging of your data to make it work for your own use cases. So it should open up some doors. But with the scraping, we were able to get the title, the URL, the description, and use it inside of this example.
And I think, I think that's a very clever way to do it. I know that and anybody who joined our live stream on Tuesday last with Kalev, the founder of GDELT, would know that there's many different ways to retrieve the GDELT data. And I know there's a knowledge graph way, which has a little bit more verbose information attached to each of the records, etc. too. But so this is essentially our way that we did it, Nick. There's other ways to get the
one
information.
of many.
Yeah.
One of many ways. There are other features that we have working out in here that are still, all of this is very much work in progress. There's some of this that you see on the page is held together with a little bit of tape right now, just so that way it's ready for demo purposes. But I mean, we have search capabilities, or we did at one point in time. You see we have duplicate data for now. So that's, all of this is going to be kind of optimized and made fancier over the next few live streams, hopefully.
Great.
So what do you guys think? Should we dive into some massaging of data?
Yeah, I want to see how this works.
Yeah, and I think just to interrupt, sorry for
for sure.
Fill in the background, I suppose. One of the things is that we have done 2 sessions now with regard to importing the GDELT data into a cluster of MongoDB. All of those sessions are up on our forums or up on YouTube and Twitch as recordings. So you can go and see how Mark and our other colleague, Joe Drumgoole, managed to get the data in there that Nick is now working with. So we're not glossing over that data. And the other thing I suppose to point out too is that for participants in the hackathon, it's true to say that we will allow them to work with that version of our data, or they can use those importers to do their own cluster and their own setup as well too, correct?
As far as I know,
Yes.
yeah, they can use our data, assuming that I don't break it or something along the way, right? I'm doing all of my testing in production right now, so you never know.
Yeah, proper
hackathon
practices,
way.
proper practices.
No, I've got some more work to do on that cluster as well. So we're going to get some more data in there and possibly put in some indexes to make some of the queries more optimized. But yeah, It's a changing data set, but hopefully we won't change it in incompatible ways unless we have to.
Yeah, and we created a GDELT category just yesterday as well, too, up on the forum. So before, all the GDELT information was buried in our resources for hackathon participants, but now we've made a GDELT category. So we're going to add any details, any of the tools, etc., repos into that category. So go there and revisit there often, because as Mark says, we are working on this ourselves and updating and changing things.
Yep. I actually brought Compass up on my screen. I think it might be a little easier to read than what I had going on in Atlas. Is this still large enough, or should I crank up the size a bit more?
You need to crank up the size of that.
All right. It's hard to tell.
We don't all have enormous monitors.
Yeah. All right. No problem.
Yeah. God forbid you're viewing the live stream on a phone. You're not going to be seeing it anyway, right?
Yeah. You'll have to make stuff up. Is that large enough now?
A little bit. Yeah. I think maybe. Can you expand it one more time, maybe?
Yeah, I just did. Is that good?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think so.
I can go larger if you want. Don't.
If anybody who's watching the stream would like us to go larger than that, like, just let us know in the chat.
Yeah.
I'd go one larger again.
One
Nick.
larger.
One.
I'm running out of space over here now. All
There
right.
you go.
I wonder if there's a way. Wait, actually, I think I could hide that. Yeah. All right. Perfect. That's a little better now, since I could hide that little window.
Oh yeah. That's
because I only have this user that I'm logged into for this data set. I only gave it access to one collection.
I normally do this in the web browser, but this expands much better. Like when you increase the font sizes and things.
Yeah,
like,
it did.
It works much better in Compass. So I'm going to be demoing Compass in future, I think.
I think I could hide that a little bit too. Yeah. Yeah, it did work out surprisingly well. So this is. Let me explain what's going on here in Compass, and we'll work our way into code. I'm going to use some JavaScript to get this job done. But like I said, this info field, by default, when Mark loaded the data with his scripts, it didn't have an info field. So what I'm doing here as part of the loading process, I'm going to walk you through it, I guess, in theory first. We want to query for all documents that don't have that info field. For any document that doesn't have that info field, we're going to make sure that the source URL exists, because there are certain circumstances right now where, for whatever reason, the source URL does not exist. So we want to make sure that source URL exists because it's very important to us. Once we have that list of data that matches the criteria, where info exists as false and source exists as true, what we can do is we can actually use some Node.js code, scrape the website, come back with the result of the meta tags, and then do an update operation on a per document basis, because we're going to be looping through every single one of the documents that doesn't have an info field. We're going to have an ID, we're going to have the URL, so we can go back and do an update and add that field so it exists. And because now that field exists, it won't show up in future operations, because that's not what we're going to be checking for. So that's kind of the in theory on what's happening. Let me go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code, and we're going to play the Zoom game just a little bit more here.
Yeah, a few more times.
A few more times on top of that?
No, I can actually see that. I think that's about the same size as the previous screen. So
yeah.
All right.
Readable.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. So all I've done here, this is empty. I've just added a .env so that way I can keep my MongoDB Atlas URI tucked away as an environment variable. But we want to do a few things here, and the first of which is probably install our dependencies. So the first being the MongoDB Client. So I'm going to say npm install MongoDB. So this is just the driver. I'm not using Mongoose. I'm choosing just use vanilla as possible here. The next thing that I want to do, which I found a pretty nifty library for, is this npm package called HTML Metadata Parser, and it worked out surprisingly well. So basically you provided a URL and it extracts just the important meta or SEO data, such as title, image, description, things like that. Rather than me having to write my own parser, or figuring out what the heck I need to do. It just
I would never have even thought to look for this. I would have just been writing this from scratch. This is it's so much a better idea to use this
That's
library.
how I started. I started doing that, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to deal with all these edge case. We've got 15 million records. I'm gonna mess up somewhere.
So this is your secret sauce. You're standing on the shoulders of giants, Nick. You're using something that somebody else made and tested somewhere else.
Of course, I'm doing very little myself.
Yeah, listen, I don't know how anybody did anything before Stack Overflow existed for developers and other websites where you could go and
Well, we
take
had
packages.
Experts Exchange, Shane. I'm old enough to remember that.
Well, yes.
Crazy thing about this library is it actually taught me something else. I didn't know that you could actually prettify your JSON, like pretty print it with JSON stringify. I've gone like my whole life not knowing that I could do that. And now I know.
I learned that like 2 weeks ago.
This is game changer for me.
Yeah, it's just like, it took me too long to find that too.
I see a message in the chat from Angie. Did we miss John and Avik's demo? Unfortunately, yes, but it will be on demand. And they did a great job at showing off what they did so far. All right. So with that in mind, I'm going to install this metadata package, and Mark, Shane, feel free to interrupt me at any time.
Cool. I was just going to say that there were no puppies in that demo. I know Angie was very keen to see puppy news, but there were sunsets. So, we just replaced one kind of sort of beautiful part of nature with another.
Yeah, and so, I could just say one thing, and Angie's question that popped up there, it was kind of serendipity. So Angie put a post on our forums essentially saying she can't compete in this hackathon because she's a MongoDB employee. But what about these sort of ideas? And essentially, John and Avik jumped on that and took it from there. And I think that's the sort of thing that we do. There's no stupid ideas. There's no stupid questions. So please, we have that category, projects looking for hackers and hackers looking for projects. Post in there. You never know how you manage to assemble a team and put things together.
Yeah, but if you want to start a project that really definitely has puppy news in it, then that'll make Angie very happy.
You could like trawl through all of the GDELT records to try and find the puppy news. I don't think it's that sort of data set, but maybe there is somewhere in the bowels associated with something else. There might be puppies.
If sunsets can sneak in, then I'm pretty certain there are puppies somewhere in there. We can.
Well, a nice sunset in Edinburgh is probably a rare occurrence, though, Mark, right?
No, you see, we have enough cloud cover that the sun, if the sun is just sneaking through the clouds, we get some really stunning sunsets.
Okay, I stand corrected then. So
just type in my includes here. I don't have a way to. I don't think you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Actually, I don't know if there's a way to like automatically import whatever's in your package JSON as node dependencies in Visual Studio Code. That'd be pretty cool if there was, right? Like if it picked up in my package.json, hey, I'm using these dependencies, go ahead, hit a shortcut key, and then bam, they're in there.
No, I don't know of anything that does that. I'm sure we could, though.
Another cool thing I learned from this project, actually, so you can actually, let me figure out the key that I was pressing. That's not the key. All right, so there was actually, I can actually format my code or format my document in here. So like every time I look at somebody's code that has like indents all over the place that don't even make any sense, I could format it and it'll fix it for me. That's like another cool thing that I learned recently with Visual Studio Code.
I'm only laughing because I was trying to build a page that we didn't have a proper CMS for yesterday. I spent most of my time reformatting somebody else's layout. So
by hand, right?
Yeah, because I knew I was going to have to PR it, and I didn't want anyone else to have to see it in the way that I had copied and pasted it in. So I've just learned something. Thank you, Nick.
It's like
I was doing it by hand too.
It's Option Shift R or something, isn't it? It's like automatic formatting. We no longer have to do this by hand.
I don't know the exact command, but luckily it's very easy to search for within the tool palette of Visual Studio Code.
Yeah.
So is that kind of what if you disagree with their style of formatting in the automatic format?
You know what? Like whatever language you're working in, you'd work with the default style, and everybody else should do that too. And then we no longer have to have any arguments about exactly where you place line breaks or anything like that. This is like dumb stuff that the computer should do for you. We never need to think about this again.
Yeah.
I have quite strong opinions on this.
I'm well aware of that. I know your strong opinions when we used to have to build our articles using RST, right? And it was like 3 spaces at the start. And
yeah, but that was just wrong. It's like the standard for RST is 4. The only people who don't use 4 spaces in RST is Google, who use 2.
Well, we were using 3 though, weren't we? We picked.
Yeah, we were using 3. I don't know why we were using 3.
Being different and special. That's what we were trying
weird
to do.
Number.
Yeah.
All right. What is there a comment about your Scottish? Oh, the Scottish sunset.
It was one of the news articles that came up in John and Avik's app.
Right click also.
I was very excited about it, so I looked up the link.
Yeah. All right. There's a format option there.
Wow.
I didn't know that. All this time, I've been using Visual Studio Code for years and never knew this. So it happens, I guess. All right, so I have the dependencies imported. Now what I want to do is I want to define the MongoDB client with my connection string. So I'm going to say constant. I'm going to say maybe Mongo client equals new Mongo client. And because I'm using environment variables, I know that I've named them as, I can access them from process.env.atlas URI. And for clarity on what exactly the URI string should look like, I'll go back into my dashboard here. And I will say connect. And this is what the string looks like. Of course, I've entered in my own username and password to this, but this is what I mean when I talk about the Atlas URI. Let's go back in and keep flying through. How's that sound?
Yeah, sounds good.
So a lot of the operations that I do with MongoDB are going to be asynchronous, and I could just use a vanilla promise in Node, but I'm actually going to use async and await. I'm not going to like declare any functions here, so I'm going to use one of these bad boys here.
Well, that's declaring a function, isn't it? You're just not giving it a name.
Is it? Well, yeah, I'm not naming it. We'll go with that. We'll go with that. And we should always do a try catch block when we're going to use some awaits in there, right?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Should we?
Let's put it this way. If I did not do this, I did some explosions yesterday with this that would have been all bad if it didn't break away and catch the errors.
Is that not just because you were in a loop or something, or because is that really an async thing?
Well, when you use await because you don't have access to the reject and the resolve directly in a promise.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because typically you would say something like then, and then you would say result.
Yeah, but I thought if an exception was thrown from an await, then it actually like bubbled up into the calling. I mean, it's not a thread, is it? But I thought you still got access to that in the calling context.
No, maybe.
This is not a detail that's important to this stream, but it's certainly something I'm going to look up afterwards.
Yeah, I'm not a Node expert. I mean, lately I've been doing most of my development in C#, so this is wild. I don't know. They're all similar.
C# that invented async and await. So
yeah, right. Yeah. Console.error. Slip one of those suckers in there. All right, so now we can actually get connected to MongoDB because just declaring the client won't do much for us. So what we can say is something like await, and we can say Mongo client.connect. I think it's a lowercase c. So that would establish a connection or throw an error if it failed. And at this point, now I can get a reference to our database, which is GDELT, and our collection, which is recent events. So I'm going to say constant database equals Mongo client. I'm going to say DB. I've also stored this as an environment variable, I believe. I'm going to try it. I believe I did. If not, I can hard code it. But it should be Atlas database, I think, is what I called it. I just don't want to expose I'm lazy. I don't want to expose my credentials and then go and change them later.
In the Node Mongo client, can you get the default database? Because then you could have it as part of your URI. But I know not all our drivers support that.
I think in the Node one you can.
But this is cool.
Yeah, whatever works. There's a million ways to solve these problems, right?
Sure.
So we have a collection. We have database dot collection. I should also, if my naming convention serves accurate here, Atlas collection. So these are just handles or references to the collections and the database. It's not actually doing anything with those yet, but we do have a connection to MongoDB as of now. So the first step is get our data. So which data needs that metadata information? And like you saw inside of Compass, this is the query or the filter that I plan to use. I am going to further adjust it because for this particular task, I don't need all this information. It's reckless of me to include it in the result. So I'm just going to project what I need. So I know I need the ID because otherwise I'm not going to be able to do an update. And then I also need the source URL. So one defines that I want it. So I can make an adjustment here. And this looks a lot better to me because we know that info doesn't exist at this point. There may be circumstances where I need more, where I can just update the project, but I don't for this scenario.
It's better not to be sending large documents across the network, is it? It's like you just want to filter it down to the data that you need.
Yeah, and these technically these aren't huge, but if we're going to be writing a script that updates 15 million records or so, and you have to go through each one of them, it's probably going to be large over time.
Yeah, it's going to add up quickly, isn't it?
If I were to limit this to say 10 records, leave them. Probably not going to make a big deal. So we'll see. All right, so this is what we want to reproduce. So I'll go back into my code here, and I can actually do a find operation within Node.js. And a lot of this is documented in the documentation as far as how to use the Node.js driver, vanilla like this, and it's actually pretty good documentation. It's if you're new to this stuff, you should have a relatively easy time, I think, to solving this stuff. So I'm going to say constant. I can call it like I don't know, news without info. You guys can make fun of my variable definitions. I don't know. I could just call it n, right?
No, I think that's good.
One of those guys.
Go for it.
I like longer variable names, and especially if you don't abbreviate them as well, then you don't have to worry about which letters you decided to skip the last time you typed the variable name. So this is all good.
Yeah. All right, perfect. So we've got an await in there. I'm going to say collection.find, and this is where I provide my filter. So actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this down because I am going to do not only a find, but I'm also going to be doing the project. But for the find, what I can do is I can breeze on over to Compass here and hopefully copy this. And I'm going to make use of that slick format operator, see if it works. It formatted everything incorrectly.
You've just put a dictionary inside a dictionary, so it's not very happy with your syntax.
Oh, yeah, my bad.
Sorry, I'm using Python terminology as well. So it's like an object within an object.
It still didn't work. All right. So I've made a liar of myself for this format command. It worked every time I've used it in the past week. Right?
Yeah. I mean, maybe it wasn't a very long line, so maybe it just decided it was fine as it was.
All right. Well, I will investigate that for the next stream, so that way I can redeem myself. I'm getting a question on, can you explain what project does? So project lets me determine exactly which fields I want to be returned to the client. So it's kind of like a SQL statement where instead of using an asterisk, which everyone recommends against, you're actually defining the fields that you want as part of your result. Same concept in MongoDB. You're defining the fields that you would like to return in your result. And by specifying 1, you're saying include that field. 0 means like exclude. And there are certain patterns you can use to shortcut certain scenarios as well, based on the 1 and 0 technique. Hopefully that answered your question, Ankit. All right, so I copy that. I'm just going to do a project here. Lucky for us, with Node and most of the drivers, actually, I think, it's pretty much copy and paste what you can do in Compass or the shell or whatever you're using. There's not a too many differences. So if you wanted a prototype in Compass, it can make life easier.
When you're working with JavaScript, like it works across most of our tools, doesn't it? Like just really
does.
natively. So it does make life easier.
Yeah, because you can use the Visual Studio Code extension where you get playgrounds that are in JavaScript.
That's
shell,
cool.
The new shell boasts like all JavaScript right now. So,
did you know Mongosh is available in Compass now? So there's like a hidden tab at the bottom of your Compass window that says.
Yeah,
Mongosh.
I saw this pop up lately. I've never tried it though.
You get a full JavaScript environment in there for executing against your database. It's kind of cool. It's got syntax highlighting
yesterday. That would have been helpful yesterday, honestly.
Always yesterday, right?
Well, no, I'll tell you why. And this is probably me embarrassing myself here as somebody who works for MongoDB. But I'm in Compass and I'm like, am I going to have to write an aggregation to do a count? Like, because when working with 15 million documents, this count right here, it didn't show a value. Like it was too many to list. So I needed to actually do a count, and I did it with an aggregation. But if I had this, I mean, I could just type in basically find.count, and it would have been drastically easier. So this is helpful information.
Cool.
Thanks for the tip. I'm learning stuff.
So the upper limit on the displaying documents 1 of X is not wide enough for really, really huge numbers of documents?
Yeah, so I limited it to 10. It might take a second here. So it found results. This will kind of spin for a long time, and then it'll just say NA.
Okay.
I know the reality that it's like 15 million, but it's too much for this to handle. So not too much for Compass to handle as far as working with your data, just whatever this little display thing is.
It's interesting.
I sense a ticket being raised for the Compass team, right? You need to raise the ticket. We found a problem.
Yeah, it's all good though. There's ways. It hasn't stopped me. All right, where was I? I was ID. So 1, I do want the ID, and then source URL. Also 1, and so this. I'm going to do a limit here because I don't want 15 million documents to just show up in my Node.js, and I don't plan to use cursors. So I guess if you're using a cursor, the whole 15 million doesn't matter because you're doing it in batches. You're getting your documents down to your client in, I think the default batch is like 20 records.
So what are you planning to do? Just like convert this to an array?
Yeah, so I'm going to convert it to array because I've been playing around with ideas, and as I make this, you guys can show recommendations at me as well if you come up with better ideas to this. So if I were to do a cursor, and I was to loop through 20 or so documents at a time, my choice would be for the next step is to, I guess, scrape those websites one at a time, which is an asynchronous step in itself, and then do another update of that document and just wait one at a time, which would be really slow.
Yep.
There was a way where I came up where I'm doing them kind of in batches, where I do a promise all. I generate a bunch of promises for these web requests that will happen. I execute them all at once and then move on to the next batch.
Okay.
But all of that didn't seem to work well with a cursor, or at least the way that was going on in my crazy mind?
Kind of want it. Ideally, I think you would use the cursor to sort of loop. You'd ask for the next 10, like one by one, and put them in an array, and then do your batch, and then do it again. But it's fiddly code, right? It's much easier if you just take your limited result and work with that as a batch.
And where I'm going with this after is so I am going to limit it as an array, but I'm also going to just have an external loop. Now I won't loop this infinite, even though that in reality I probably do. Like loop it until the results come back as 0, because eventually every document is gonna it's not gonna pass this criteria eventually, in theory. So we'll get 0. So I would loop it until it's 0, doing 50 or so documents at a time. But I'm just gonna do a for loop and maybe just loop it 10 or so times. We won't do all of the documents. That even with proper optimization, it might still take a while to sift and scrape, I should say, scrape each one of those 15 million documents. Because it's dependent on whatever servers that these websites are using, and the CNN might be fast, but the Scottish news, right? Maybe they're working on GeoCities right now as far as their news. There's news, right?
I miss GeoCities. The democratization of the web.
Yeah.
There are a whole load of younger people here going, what is this GeoCities thing? Like, why? What is this crazy old bald man talking about?
I'm glad you got it, though, when I said it, though.
I did.
All right, so we have the project. We're not doing anything yet. I am going to limit it before I forget, because I will absolutely forget to limit it. I'll limit it to 10 for now. Just keep it where I know it's performant. Cool. And let's go ahead and say to array to signify that I'm going to load it all at once and not use a cursor for this particular task. I think if I wasn't doing a web request, I would absolutely use a cursor. But there's just so many moving pieces that I think it would be slow. I don't know. People can prove me wrong in the chat. I would love to get proved wrong here on this stuff if people have better ways. So I have that. You know what? Just for the sake of it, let's just print out what we have, just to prove that it works, right?
I think that's a good idea.
So
debugging with print statements. That's what I always do.
Yes, exactly. What did I already say this command was? So what did I call it? News without info?
Yeah.
So I'm a four space guy for my tabs.
Like man after my own heart. 4 spaces, no tabs.
anything less than 4, I can't read it properly. I don't know why.
Yeah.
All right, so I can say node main.js, and hopefully it doesn't explode here. It got something. It got some records.
Nice.
Got what we expected.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Got a lot of duplicates, I think, at least at first glance, they look like duplicates, which
they
could
do.
be right. We do have duplicates in our data. It's work in progress. We haven't ironed everything out yet.
Well, no, so you can get multiple events per source URL. So it's not necessarily...
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
So a single news article can essentially trigger multiple events. So it could describe multiple events. And in fact, some things that you might consider to be one event could be 2. So for example, like there's a diplomatic mission, like from one country to another, and then they sign a peace treaty. That can come up in one article, and that would be 2 events, maybe. It's all written up in the code book. All the documentation that's on the GDELT website. Let me bring up a banner for the GDELT project. So yeah, there's a /data directory under that URL, and that's got all the information about the data that you're working with.
Sweet. Eggs. All right, so we have our data coming in, and this is where we start needing to populate the URLs. I'll leave that print in there just for the time being. But what we want to do is we want to loop through them. You could use a for each or whatever you're comfortable in. I'm just going to use a standard for loop here. We're going to loop it until the news without info is... Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
What was that?
That was the wrong auto-completion.
Yeah. Don't you love it when that happens?
I do hate it when that happens. I've never got to grips with VS Code's auto-completion. And it's my main code editor these days, but I'm not very good with it.
Yeah, I'm surprised that happened. So I'm looping through the results. This is where we need to use that parser library. So if I go back into the browser here, it's a pretty simple library. I've already imported it. All I need to do, this returns a promise. From what I found out, it uses Axios under the covers. So if it fails, it'll just throw some kind of web error if it fails. So this is what we're after. I need to provide that source URL every time I want to parse. So what I can do is maybe let result equals, I'm going to use a wait again for this example. I'm going to say parser. And what do we have? News without info. It worked this time. And then source URL. So result. And it's yelling at me for some reason here.
There's a dot and then a square bracket. You don't want both of those.
All right. Didn't see it. Good call. Good catch.
It's always easier for somebody just observing to see those things.
Yes. At least you're paying attention, right?
Yeah. Well, this is really interesting. So, of course.
Could be. And I realized that I think that I said we were going to do this in batches. We can always optimize this in a second. I just want to get the basic flow going on probably the simplest approach to it. Then we'll add some complexity to it to do the batching. What does the SHTML mean? Good question. I have honestly no idea. Mark, do you know in the URLs?
I think that's an extension used by something like Cold Fusion, maybe, and so it tells the server that it needs to execute the page as a script before it sends it as HTML to the browser.
Could be.
Yeah, it's like in the old days, that's kind of how you used to have dynamic web pages.
Like ASP?
Yeah, exactly.
Remember those?
Server-side stuff.
Cold Fusion.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
so
what's being sent to the sorry, carry on.
No, go on, man.
I was going to say what's being sent to the browser is just HTML with snippets of JavaScript, like you'd expect. But it's like, yeah, it's just telling the server to do some stuff with the file before it sends HTML to the browser.
All right, I'm just retraining my train of thought here for a second. All right, so we have the result. It should have the meta information that we saw right here for this particular library. So we have OG, we have image, meta. I'm just going to store all of it. So I'm going to store the meta and the OG. I'm probably going to scrap the images. So I guess I'm not storing all of it. But let's see what we can do. So I'm going to say, maybe even before I say it, I should print it out just to show that it works and what it looks like. So let's go ahead and say console.log. Do the whole stringify thing again. And just so that way we don't end up with a mess here, I'm going to comment out this previous one. And in theory, and it's still going. And there's a reason why it's still going. It's still running technically. It hasn't like gracefully exited. So what I can do to gracefully exit it is I have the try catch with my MongoDB connection. If I wanted to, I can throw a finally block in there. And I can say something like await Mongo client dot close should be it. And that will cause it to gracefully end when everything inside the try block is done. It's up to you if you want to add that or not. You don't have to. All right, let me run it now. Oh, all right, fun. Got,
is this an error? Oh, it's a 404, isn't it?
Yeah, I had some issues with this yesterday. So let me find the top of this sucker. Yeah, so some of the URLs were dead URLs. But the weird thing is I ran them again later and they started working again. So maybe somebody didn't pay their bill. So I have no idea. But this could be an issue. If worst case scenarios, I can add a skip in there to my query and skip over all of these bad ones. If they're all bad, are they all bad? Oh, you know what? It exits out regardless because that's my exception handling.
Yeah.
So let's change that. So if I go into my error, what I can probably do is I can say if e dot, I think it's this is Axios I'm thinking of. I think it's e dot response code or status. Might be status. We'll play around with both. So basically, if it equals 404 or 403 or whatever, I'm just going to ignore it and not print out the error. Let it just skip over it. So
but will it actually skip over it because you've left your for loop by this point?
Good call. You're right. Yeah, it'll just die.
Yeah, you're gonna have to kind of restructure this code or stick another try catch just inside the for loop, I guess.
Good, yeah. Like right here.
Yeah.
Good teamwork here.
It's definitely helpful to have somebody over your shoulder, isn't it? I understand why people sort of appreciate pair programming. I personally find pair programming exhausting, but for a short live stream or something, it's good.
Yeah. All right. So in this case, I'm going to go back to my plan here of actually, if it's if I just catch it in this circumstance, it should fail for that one. It'll throw me a nasty error and should move on. But I do want to actually like make it a little prettier because it's going to help us for readability. So I do think it's called status. I'm going to provide it. That should be a string. It should be a numeric. I'll say skip over 403, 404. So basically, I'm saying I think it's includes. If this status code is inside of this array, so that way I can skip both of them without having to do an AND statement.
It is response status, by the way.
It is response status. Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you for looking. I'm just going to say, actually, if it's not one of those, I'm going to print it out. Because then we've probably got other problems on our hands. All right. So let's it wants this inside. Just fine. All right, let's see if this works. See if it prints anything.
Well, I was thinking.
Oh, it got something.
There you go.
All right, so remember, I'm not actually doing the insert or the update as of now, and I still am including these images, which I may or may not need. If you need them, then I'd say leave them. But you actually do have an image URL. Well, you should have. Most of the ones that I've looked at so far had an image URL in the OG stuff for like Twitter, like Open Graph. Apparently, this does not. So, and it looks like maybe we only got one result come back because the rest of them. Oh, we've got more than one.
That's good.
That one doesn't have an OG yet. Does the stringify not? It should do a deep print, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I guess it doesn't have them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to skip. I'm going to add a skip. Let's just skip by 50. See if
just want to get some better data.
Yeah. Until we figure out what to do with all those dead links. Yeah, see, it's printing out a ton more stuff now.
That's good.
See if any of these have OG tags.
There was an OG. I thought there was an OG one further down, but maybe not. Oh, no.
Dude, wow, none of these really have OG tags?
I mean, OG is so important for SEO. It seems surprising that they're not coming back with OG data.
That is very surprising, unless it's just the print that's not doing it right. That's weird.
That stringify thing is not really designed for printing objects. It's designed for serializing objects as JSON. So it's like, it's fully recursive.
Yeah.
Unless that 4 isn't indentation. It's just telling it to go 4 deep, but I don't think that's what's happening.
I thought it was 4 spaces. If it's 4 deep,
I'm
then
certain that's 4
my
spaces.
life's a lie.
Yeah.
We won't look too deep into it. All right. It's all good. It's all good.
We've had somebody join called Burak. He says hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Hello, Burak. Yeah.
All right. So we've got some data. I'm just gonna assume that this is good data. We won't look too deep into it yet until things start breaking later. Which we could always wipe out if need be. All right, now we want to actually do the update of our document. So in this case, I'm just gonna say await, and I'm gonna say collection, and I'm gonna update a single document at a time because that's kind of what we need to do because we're scraping one document at a time. I don't think there's any kind of better ways to do that. Do you guys know of any hacks?
That's what I would have done.
Unless because you said multiple sites can have the same source URL, unless I got it that way instead of going based on ID, I updated based on URL.
Yeah, but
that could
you're
be
going to have an
interesting.
index to look things up by ID. I mean, bear in mind this collection is already really big.
Yeah.
But you're not going to have an index to look things up by source URL. So I think probably better to just find it by ID.
Yeah. So for the update or update many, the first one is the match criteria. So I'm going to match based on the ID. We have the news without info underscore ID because we included it in our project here. So we have it. We don't need to match on anything else. So the next thing that we're going to do is this is our actual change criteria. I'm going to do a set. So this will set a field that we want within our documents that was matched. And what we're going to set is we're going to set this info with a capital I. And I'm going to pass in, what do we have? Result.meta. And yeah. We have meta and we have OG, right?
Yep. I didn't know if they were top level. I quite often get those sort of ignore top level.
I don't think there were.
Fields,
we'll check in just a second. Meta.og. So
is that meta.og or result.meta.og? Oh, sorry, result.og, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know why. I just saw meta and I assumed here. Spazzing out. All right. So as far as top level, we have that should be top. So we have meta and hopefully something somewhere has an OG.
That all looks good.
Otherwise, I'm gonna have to change some code. Maybe run a secondary script to populate with a fake image or something later on, like a placeholder. Some stock.
So
media.
you're getting the images out of the OG section rather than the images metadata that's coming back. Is that how
I am because I don't know what these images are. For all I know, these could be just all of the images that pop up inside of the news article.
Yeah, they don't look like thumbnails, do they? So yeah, you might be right.
I mean, it's very surprising, like you said, for SEO not to have an OG like Open Graph.
It feels like that library's not quite doing what it's supposed to be doing right now. Who knows?
Yeah. Let me comment this, and we're actually going to run a test real quick here. I'm going to go back to Compass, and I'm going to make use of count here. And we're going to count all the records we have before I run it and see if there are new records or the count has increased.
Cool.
So in this one, I should be able to say, use GDELT. Perfect. My shell commands are very, I don't use shell that often. So if you see me making a mistake, please let me know.
I always have the documentation up for that whenever I'm doing a stream with it. 'Cause it's like, it's even the basics, like listing collections is slightly fiddly.
So it should be DB, and then we have recent events, and then we have find, and I am going to say, in this case, I'm going to say find all of them that info does exist. So we don't need to know the other way around. It's probably faster if we see what does exist here. So exists, and we can say true. I think my brackets are good there. Maybe. And I can say count. I think that'll do it. Yeah, all right. So we have currently, before I run this, we have 1,117. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to increase this. I'm going to live dangerously and set it to 50 instead of 10. So if all out fails, I'll have to go fix 50 documents somewhere, right?
Yep.
All right, you ready for this, guys?
Go for it. I'm ready. Let me take a deep breath. Oh no,
it's already running. It's gonna take a minute though. It's only running. It's only doing this for 50 documents. I'm not looping through. There's no optimizations made to this whatsoever. But it's a starting point. If you feel like you're working on one of these hackathon projects and you need to do some kind of data massaging.
I mean, that's always the way that I work with data now. Is I get it into MongoDB in whatever form it is as easily as I can, right? Like I don't do all the cleaning up in Python scripts. I used to, but now I get it. If it's in a CSV file, it's like Mongo import it into the database and then use aggregate and the out stage to create a new collection from that, like all cleaned up. It's much easier than trying to do it manually. So yeah, we've got another 50 documents. That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, we're a long way from this 15 million. But I don't know. I may eventually sort it by the timestamp. And I think, Mark, you mentioned this before. We were just going to get like the most recent news events from like the past few months.
Yeah.
So if I were to sort it and just do those, it probably isn't 15 million. Maybe, hopefully, a couple thousand if I'm lucky.
Yeah, I think actually we get about 3,000 documents every 15 minutes. So it's going to be changing all the time. But because you've written this in JavaScript, we could put this in a Realm function and have this like periodically running against the collection to add that data in, which could be kind of cool.
Maybe every time. I mean, I wonder what kind of load it would put if we had every time you consumed it, it did that trigger and did the scrape right inside the function, like you said, on a per document basis. I wonder what that would do.
Yeah, I mean, we could have the trigger kicked off from the collection, right? So every time a document is added to the collection, that then runs the trigger once. So yeah, that would work really well.
You think it would work, or you think it'd blow up?
No, I think it'd be okay. I have faith. Yeah, because the problem with batch processing with Realm is that you've got I think it's a 2-minute limit that the function has to complete in. So Realm allows you to write serverless functions that run on our servers against your database. But yeah, there's some limitations there.
If it were to run 3,000 functions, that should still be in the free tier, right?
I don't know. I don't know what
maybe
the limitation is for Realm free tier.
Well, how many executions do you get on the free tier nowadays, Shane?
You're putting me on the spot. I'd have to go and look it up.
Making sure you're still awake.
I'm still here. I will do my research on the side while we're waiting.
I don't know. I think this is a good stop point because we have something. I realize that I've mentioned batching and doing all that cool nifty stuff to improve upon this, but I think it serves its purpose and it might be a good stop point until the next stream, and maybe I just throw some better code up on GitHub later. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I think that's a good stop point. You've got something working. We've been going for an hour and 20 minutes now, so I'm sure people are getting tired, but that was cool. I learned a lot. There's like you say, JavaScript's not your strong point, but there were a couple of JavaScript things you did in there that I've never seen before. So that was cool.
I think one of the things too, Nick, might be that, and it's entirely up to you. This is your project you're building at the same time. Do we want to maybe kind of do another session rather than just one on the Fridays each week? Is there too much to try and cover in a single session? Entirely up to yourself.
Well, so I mean, looking at I threw several YouTube schedules out there for these sessions on Fridays. So if I go back to the GDELT stuff, I mean, I had an idea, a vision on where we could take this as far as each session, and if you think that maybe it's too big to handle or too small, we could always revise this. And when I say you, I mean everyone who's listening in the audience right now. But I mean, I had plans to talk about how to build this in a next stream. So this uses Next.js and React.
Mm-hmm.
I had intentions on getting Atlas search working, so that way we could do full text search in this application. That was going to be another stream, which I thought would be pretty cool. We could do this Mapbox stuff if you're curious on more aggregation pipelines and that kind of jazz.
I definitely want to see the Mapbox thing. Very excited about that.
It's whatever everyone wants. What I think I don't want to do is I don't want to combine too many different topics. Like if I were to do Mapbox, maybe that one might be best just for mapping related stuff, that stream, rather than trying to jam 6 different topics in. But it's up to everyone. I'm down for whatever everyone wants.
Okay, well, look, we can see what we can do. This has been super interesting, and kind of you've exposed a lot of things that I think will be very interesting to people. As per the question we just got through from Best Programmer, great handle, by the way. Wrong thing.
That was the wrong question. Yeah.
Yeah. Recorded video this later. Yes, they are. They're going to stay up on the YouTube in the live tab on MongoDB, and also on Twitch there if you go back into the history. But in our forums, in the events section, we have the YouTube links to all of these, so you can watch them directly in the forums too. But I think there's a lot to share. I'm also super conscious that we're on week 3, and we need to try and get kind of as much information out to our participants as possible. So look, it's entirely up to you, Nic. I think you've done some great work here, and I'd love to see it progress as we go along. So
I'm open to whatever everyone wants. I am down to do so.
Excellent. And I know that we don't want to get you up too early in the morning as well too. You're over in the West Coast of the US, so we'll try and see what we can do for any of those people tuning in either in Europe, which is, it's whatever, 7:20 my time, and APAC it's even later as well too. That's why the recordings exist as well. So we'll try and make those as easy accessible as possible. But this has been superb, Nic. Thank you so much for putting this together, and warts and all, live demos are live demos, and we got to see things break and things being fixed. And Mark, coding over your shoulder can't be easy,
Sorry, Nic.
He was a good buddy. Good buddy.
Most definitely.
If you enjoyed watching this video, whether you're watching it live or watching it afterwards, remember to hit that like button, because that's very important to us.
Yes.
How was that, Nic?
I love it. That was a great plug.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, I think this has been a great live stream on the coding for our Fun Hack Fridays. For those that are only joining us later, we had John and Avik join us at the very beginning, who were 2 participants in the hackathon, showcase their project. And we want to do a call out to them and say thank you very much, but also a kind of a call to action for the others on the hackathon, essentially to do the same. If you share, you inspire others to get building, and you'll learn a lot as well too. So we'll have some cool, exclusive, unique swag for those participants who are brave enough to jump on our live stream with us as well. So if that's a carrot that I can dangle in front of you, please join us. Drop me a note in the forums or any of the hackathon team, to be honest, and we'll arrange for that to happen. Above all, if what you've seen Nic and Mark go through here now has whetted your appetite and you're not on the hackathon, then sign up. Very simple. MongoDB.com/world. Thank you very much, whoever threw that one up. And you were ready.
I was ready.
So it's super easy. We've got a home in the nav bar there, hackathon. Click on that, jump in, and you'll see all the details about the hackathon there on its own page. And if you're already a member of our community, it's a one-click register for the hackathon. And if you're not, just give us your details in the community page and you'll be straight on as well too. We've got more than 300 people so far. We're looking for lots more. We really want to get as many projects built using obviously MongoDB, but more importantly, the GDELT data set, which we think is pretty fascinating. And there's lots of videos, and Mark does some great introductions to GDELT, and we'll be live streaming those next week. As I said, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays live streaming. Keep an eye out on the event calendar that's in the forums as well.
If you have questions or you need help, just let us know on the community forums, and yeah, we'll dive in and do what we can to help keep you moving on your way.
Yeah, so there you go. Excellent. Thanks everybody for joining us. And we will see you on another live session, and between now and then in the forums, most importantly.
See you, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.